All right, welcome everybody. Glad to have you aboard for our new webinar today. Today we're talking about first impressions as well as our elevator pitch, and then of course dress for success. A lot of power-packed information in this webinar. Some of the things you might know, some of the things may be new to you, but as always, our intent is to give you all hacks, gems, and strategies so that you don't waste a ton of time trying to find really great employment opportunities, but you're able to brand yourself well. So without further ado, before we get started, just remember to have your camera on if you can. We do ask that you use the mute function so that we respect the speaker, and then right click on your name and add your organization or school so we know who we're talking to.
Bonjour, je m'appelle Mira et je vais expliquer comment accéder à l'interprétation pour le webinaire. Premièrement, cliquez sur le lien dans le clavardage pour ouvrir le navigateur Wordly. Puis, sélectionnez la langue de votre choix dans le coin supérieur droite. Et cliquez sur le bouton Audio pour entendre l'interprétation en direct. Finalement, vous devez rendre le son de Zoom web. Alors, sélectionnez la flèche à côté de Mute dans le coin inférieur gauche et cliquez sur Leave Computer Audio. Et je veux aussi signaler que si vous voulez poser une question, vous devrez l'écrire dans le clavardage ou rejoindre l'audio de l'ordinateur sur Zoom. Merci.
All right. Here at PLT Canada and SFI, we always respect those that came before us, as well as those to come. And I'm on the Georgia tribe of the Eastern Cherokee, the Chickasaw, and the Cree territory. And I think it is really respectful to always show inclusivity to those that have come before us. And I love that we have a company culture where we always acknowledge that before any session, that's something big for us. A lot of folks on my team are doing some phenomenal work across the border. So we have Canadians as well as Americans jointly working on SFI's mission to have sustainably managed forest. And again, they are always helpful and supportive of if you have any questions or if you need some career advice. Definitely reach out to me first, but you can also reach out to our team that does a lot of the great work and that stands with me to help move a lot of young professionals forward in this path. So shout out to everybody on my team. Today, we have some really great learning outcomes. By the end of this webinar, you will learn why first impressions are so important. I always believe in branding yourself, and branding is not just something on paper with your resume, but it is visual, your visual brand that also extends to your LinkedIn or anything that you make public where folks can kind of learn about who you are. We'll talk about the difference between business, professional, casual, and as well as casual wear. We'll go over some interview tips. We'll talk about what an elevator pitch is. If you remember me talking about that on one of our prior webinars, that's a big thing as well. And when you want to use that, as well as go over some LinkedIn branding. So it's going to be a power-packed session, and I'll try to have you out within the hour. But why are first impressions so important? Well, you don't have a ton of time when folks are interviewing you. And even sometimes some of you all might have had phone screenings. Maybe you're applying for a job or position or internship. But folks are always looking to see what type of person you are. And so they're going to form their own opinions on your appearance, your body language, your voice, and your mannerisms. I know for someone who has had social anxiety, this has been a big challenge for me because, again, I sometimes get nervous when I'm speaking in front of people with my body language and my voice. But over time, with practice, I've gotten a lot better with that. And so hopefully I can give you some tips there. They're also important because first impressions set the tone for the relationship, right? So again, you kind of want to go in to really make a statement where folks are excited. They feel that you fit into the work culture, and you fit into that environment. Sometimes I know I've been overdressed for the position, and I've gone to work where folks are more casual, more free spirited, and so my dress has changed as such. But the biggest thing about first impressions, they make a difference in whether you're hired or not. It absolutely can and does happen when you go into your interview. So of course you want to make sure that you are presentable as possible. And you'd be surprised, as someone who's interviewed people, that I've seen it all. So that's why we always talk about this a little bit. So we're going to play a little game where I want you all to, in the chat, enter if you think the person is dressed appropriately for the occasion. And you can say, looks good, or no, I don't like the look. You can put it in the chat as I go through the next few slides. So, scenario one, this lady is going on a fancy dinner with her colleagues where the CEO of the organization will be present. So she's going to a dinner where the CEO is present. Do you think, in the chat, you can enter in, is she dressed appropriately or not? And I'm going to check the chat and read some of the responses. So let me repeat the scenario. She's going to a fancy dinner with colleagues. Her CEO will be present. Jillian says, too casual. Oh, yes. Jillian's right on the money. Susan says she looks casual. Absolutely. Matthew says, no, too casual. Michaela says, I think it's too casual for a fancy dinner with the CEO. Absolutely. And Braden says, I agree, too casual. Absolutely. So you guys are right. She has looks like a winter jacket on. I think she's going skiing or something. That's what I would assume. But definitely not to a formal dinner. Anytime you have leadership there, these are the folks that are looking at your work or hearing about you. Maybe they work with you directly or indirectly, but you typically want to be on the conservative side. And this to me is more outdoorsy look. So definitely right. Let's go to the next one. She's going to do an interview for an internship at her university. This woman is going to do an interview for an internship at her university. Is this appropriate or not? Let's go to the chat. Who has the right answer? Matthew says, well, it's close to being appropriate, but it's still too casual, I think. Okay. Anyone else? Thank you for sharing, Matthew, by the way. Jillian says, doesn't seem formal enough for me. So I would agree with you both. If you're going to an internship, unless maybe it's a fashion internship, maybe that's it. But even then, I still would probably err on the side of a little more conservative. The red lip is a little much for me. I definitely wouldn't have a red lip coming into the internship. Probably long sleeves a little bit, as well as pants and versus shorts. Now, of course, the weather indicative, but most times you want to err on the side of being very conservative. She is going on a formal business meeting with her work partners. This woman is going on a formal business meeting with her work partners. Is this appropriate or not? Okay. Michaela, I think this is one you responded to. She said, I think it's closer to appropriate. I think so this was the last one. So what about this one that we have right here? She's going to a formal business meeting with her partners. Absolutely. Susan says yes. Matthew says yes. Ashlyn gives a thumbs up. And Brooke says definitely more appropriate. Absolutely. So yes, Olivia says seems very appropriate. Absolutely. This woman is styled perfectly. I love the green, very conservative, dark green, beautiful bag. I'm always big for accessories. That's a lovely bag, but it's not a loud color. And she looks very polished. So I definitely would say appropriate, especially if you're going to a business meeting. Absolutely. Let's do two more. This gentleman, he's going on a Zoom interview. He's going on a Zoom interview. Is he appropriate or not? He has his flip-flops on. He has his shorts, kind of a looks like a patterned shirt here. Hair kind of, new age-ish. Okay. Matthew says not appropriate. Absolutely. So he looks like he's going to the beach, maybe kick it with his buddies, but definitely does not look like he's going to a Zoom interview, at least not Zoom interview for any formal job. Maybe volunteer possibly, but even then, it does not look appropriate. So thank you, Matthew, for answering that. One more. The gentleman is going to an international conference and he will be a speaker. So he's speaking at a international conference where he will be attending. Is he appropriate or not? Susan says, absolutely yes. Olivia says, appropriate. And Matthew says, definitely appropriate. So, absolutely. I love his tie, his suit arrangement with the colors of his shoes. Looks like a leather patent shoe. So, very well. Great grooming that he has. I would definitely say appropriate. So, I think you guys understand what would represent really good, appropriate wear. But let's just get a little more clarification when we talk about business professional, there's kind of a checklist that I keep. We definitely want to keep as best as possible a neat hairstyle, solid colors. There's nothing wrong with wearing a little color, but definitely want to keep it pretty solid if we can. Moderate shoes, conservative tie and accessories, and long sleeves and blazer. Now, this is a very generic list because, again, there will be times where you could be a little more casual. But most times, if you are applying to a position, before we get into the work culture, we must assume a general style. And this is a business casual checklist where we have our polo shirts, sweaters, blouses. We also want to keep a belt if possible, closed-toed shoes, and solid colors. Tasteful jewelry, that's the key word, tasteful jewelry, as well as twill or cotton pants or skirt. Now, we always want to make clarity for folks because we don't want to assume people know depending on, of course, your culture, your background. You might not know. Maybe you've never been told. But this is kind of what you want to have when you go into your interviews. And then we have a casual checklist. And these are easygoing outfits, and they can show a little bit more fashion. And so for me, I really don't like dressing up. I'm not a suit and tie guy. You very rarely find me in a suit and tie. I can definitely put it together. But I do know how to keep it very casual as well as professional. You'll have classic pieces over trendy pieces, sneakers or casual shoes. For me, I err on the side of casual shoes. Definitely no flip-flops. And then we do want to avoid short shorts, mini skirts, cut jeans, sports gear, and of course, strapless tops. Remember, folks, when you're coming into the interview for the first time, these folks do not know who you are. They're going to take from what you bring to them. Okay. And we want to make sure that the only thing they remember about us is our interview and how phenomenal it was, how much great personality we had, not necessarily our outfit. And I've done interviews where, again, the outfit was the topic of conversation and not their personality. So to summarize, some do's for success: just wear clothing that's appropriate in length. Make sure that your shirt covers your midriff so that the length of your shirt hits your waist. We do ask that you wear traditional fabrics, not spandex, velvet, glitz, glam. Wear button-up shirts that fit well. Watch out for the buttons. Make sure they're secure. Wear dresses, slacks, blazers, skirts that fit. Wear light makeup. You don't need to go heavy. Wear light makeup and just keep the colors to blacks, tans, grays, or whites. There's also the don'ts: ripped jeans, t-shirts, denim, trendy clothes, loud and offensive clothing. I was once at a conference. Someone came to the conference with some words that were not appropriate. Of course, I had to let him know, hey, you can't come to the conference. You got to go back and change. So just being mindful of that. Hygiene, messy hair, dirty nails. These are all things that we can work on, change, and just be mindful of. So that way, again, we represent ourselves well. And this is another one. Overpowering perfume is nothing like smelling good, having some nice scents. But again, sometimes it can be overpowering. We want to make sure we tamper that down. So now let's get into some really good stuff about our interviews. That's kind of what I get another set of questions about. Resumes is typically where most people have trouble. The second area of concern is interviewing. I get almost probably half of the questions I get during our career strategy sessions about interview. How can I do my interview better? I'm nervous, I have anxiety. And as someone who has had anxiety and been there, I can definitely tell you that there's some things that we can work on and be mindful of so that way you have a better interview. So, common interviewing anxieties. What if I say the wrong thing, Nick? What if I get rejected? Oh, that's a big one. What if I blank out and I forget what I was supposed to say? I don't know if I'm good enough. What if they ask a question I don't understand or I don't have the experience for? So all of these questions are, it's not going to make you weird. It's not going to make you uncommon. These are common questions that I get when folks come to me about interviewing skill. So let's talk a little bit about our interview anxiety. Fear of rejection, lack of preparation, social anxiety, performance anxiety, and then we also have imposter syndrome. So when it comes to being fearful of rejection, what can we do about it? That's the name of the game. What can we do about it? And what I typically tell folks, there's three things. When we come into any interview, it's about your mindset. Remember, you are a solutions and value provider. That's much different than being I'm an employee. See, I'm not an employee. I'm a solutions and value provider. What does that mean? That means SFI is paying me to provide a set of solutions and values. And when I come at it with that mindset, I come at offering the value, the expertise that I have in this certain career path. And that's what I want you to remember is that you're not an employee, you're not begging, oh my God, it's a big deal if I get rejected. No, it's you're just explaining how you offer your particular set of skills, how you think, your knowledge base, what makes you different, and how you come to that job and offer that is unique than everybody else that is coming to offer their skills and what makes them unique to that provider. And it's about the deal. It can't just be a deal for them to hire you. It also has to be a deal for you to be hired. So you have to be happy about being hired, just like they want to be happy about being hired. And see, when we see it in that way, I don't want to go to any job where I'm just been a benefactor of being hired. I want my company and organization to be excited that I'm there as an employee, and I want them to be excited that I'm coming on as an employee as well as myself. And the mindset I have is it's all a deal. It's a win for them, it's a win for me. And that helps to lessen the anxiety of feeling rejected. It's all about being able to see your win first. Okay, see your win first. Being able to come in there confidently talk about the things that you've done, your unique stories. Some of you all have great volunteer work. You have great experiences, even at an entry level, doing some of the work that you've done. And that's amazing. And people want to hear about that. So, again, when you've expressed very clearly that you can solve and provide solutions for where you're applying to, don't fear rejection. Embrace your uniqueness and being who you are because your story is unique. And you want the company to feel proud to say, hey, you know what? We want this person out of everybody else. So it's okay to not it's okay to be confident in who you are and what you bring to the table. What about lack of preparation? Sometimes we get a little nervous about, oh my God, I don't know if I'm fully prepared before the interview. Well, no one's trying to trip you up during the interview. The answers are in the job description. Most of the answers are in the job description. And those answers that are not in the job description, that's why I always talk about reaching out to someone that works at the company so you can understand a little bit more culture if possible. Sometimes you don't have the time. But most of the things they're going to ask you is about your experiences, and that comes from the job description. How you can solve their problem and how you can offer them value. So they're not trying to trick you, they're not trying to set you up. They're just trying to understand how you can help them. I always tell folks write down your examples, your answers before the interview. That's your time to be specific about the examples that you've done from where you've worked. Talk about in specificity numbers, metrics, particular stories that you remember where you had to be a project manager or use soft skills or have the right attitude or help customers. Those are the stories that provide context so that way, again, when you're in the interview, you feel prepared. It comes like second nature. And you can, of course, record yourself. Get comfortable recording yourself answering how, in the job description, how you supported what they're asking for with those specific stories of context. Okay. All right. What about social anxiety? Social anxiety is common. I told you that years ago, I really had bad social anxiety when I was in high school, was scared to talk to anyone because I didn't want people judging me. But how did I fix that? Well, I started doing a lot of networking. How did I network? One of the things I did, and this is open to anyone, Toastmasters. Toastmasters is a phenomenal club where you get to practice on speaking and practice on your communication. I also joined a local group of poets, and every week I would go to a poetry lounge. And during that poetry lounge, I would get to see people talk on the mic about different topics. And what that helped me to do was say, I really was able to observe how communication, I said, oh, wow, I can take some notes on how this person's speaking, how they're using their hands, their body language. And another benefit of going to those lounges, as well as Toastmasters, was networking. I got to meet people who gave me tips, strategies, invited me out to different networking events to really practice telling folks who I am, what I do, the value that I bring. And that really helped my confidence. Identify and change your negative thoughts. That's a big one for me. When I was in high school, I said, oh, I'm not a great speaker. Oh, I'm not good. I'll never be comfortable on the mic like everybody else. Other people are talented than me. And what I did, I really identified, why do I have those thoughts? If I see some of my friends or my peers doing some of the same things, I had to identify that first, and then I started changing those negative thoughts to as soon as I would hear it in my head, I said, "Oh, that's just a negative thought. Let me practice." I said, "I can get better." That's a different mindset. I'm not good. That's the reality, but I can get better. That's a different mindset. So I started working to change those negative thoughts, not just stay in that behavior. And of course, embrace your awkwardness. And to me, awkwardness is your uniqueness. What makes you different from everybody else? How do you see the world? What's your perspective? What are your values? That's your personal story. No one can copy your story. And so that for some, maybe you have some awkwardness but I call it uniqueness. And then you should embrace that. Be okay with being different and thinking different because people respect different. They might not understand all the time how you're different, but when you're narrating what makes you different and your perspective and your values, that helps to increase your confidence about who you are and the story that you want to tell. Performance anxiety. Oh, I don't think I'm going to do a good job. That comes up a lot. I always tell folks, set those small wins, those small goals. Again, set small goals that you can measure. So maybe you want to go do a certification. Maybe you want to be a part of a club. Maybe you want to get better in a soft skill. Well, take those small steps. Talk to your mentor. Can I join the group? That's a small win. Measure your progress each week. But make sure you have check ins with yourself, where those are reflection periods to see how you're working towards your goal, as well as celebrating when you do hit those goals that you set. One particular goal I'm working on, I'm learning a different language. I'm learning Spanish right now. And I said, man, a year ago I was terrible, could barely speak a word. But now I've gotten so much better. I'm using Duolingo. I have a Spanish tutor. I'm setting small goals for myself and I'm celebrating each week by being able to be out and talking with more words, more confidence, and I'm measuring my progress. That's going to help you feel better about how you can perform when you get the opportunity or you get the job. That's going to help you feel a lot better when you can set those small goals and say, man, I've come so far. Reward the small achievements. Definitely celebrate again when you have achieved anything that you've set your mind to. We have folks that came in this program, were very bashful, shy, timid. I've worked with them. Now they are in great positions. They're taking on internships. Some of them have gotten a couple of them have gotten some really great opportunities to start working. And these are the things that we celebrate. These are really great achievements. And we don't know, maybe by the end of the program, they'll be even further in what they're trying to do. But we want to reward those small achievements that we set for ourselves. We also want to create a pick me up kit. Okay. When you're doing really great work and you sometimes feel like, I don't know if I can do it, and you actually get it done, or sometimes maybe you don't get it done, right? What happens when you just feel like, man, I'm just down the dumps, not reaching my goals, or maybe I messed up? I always tell folks, create a pick me up kit. Maybe it's your favorite show you want to watch. Maybe it's some time out with the friends. But these are all things that are common when it comes to I don't feel like I'm going to do a good job or I'm not doing a good job. A pick me up kit for me is watching my favorite comedy show, especially if it's like when I was out trying to interview. I had a favorite comedy show I used to like to watch before my interview, and it made me feel so much better. My confidence was up. I felt like I was going to do a really great job. And most times I did a really great interview once I did that. All right. We have imposter syndrome, when you don't feel like, oh, I don't know if I'm the right person for the job. I always tell folks, meet with your mentor in that space and industry. And your mentor can be the person that was assigned to you. It could also be someone that you reached out to virtually. You can also create a work portfolio. I always tell folks to create a work portfolio to show some of the examples of your work and all the great things that you've done. You also create a highlight reel. These are kind of the biggest achievements. For me, I have a huge highlight reel. So that way I know sometimes when I don't feel like I'm qualified to do the job, I look back on all the amazing work, some articles, some YouTube. There was a time I was speaking on the news channel. That's a part of my highlight reel. So these are all great aspects of when you don't feel like you're qualified to do the work to help you feel better, more confident, especially if you're going into an interview. These are the things that I would start to think about. Just a little bit more about the interview. Stick to the script. Don't try to do a ton of responses and make it up in your head. I always tell folks there's a three-step system, a simple metric that you can use: challenge, action, and result. And the challenge, when you're responding in your interview, a challenge is what you represent, what obstacle you faced to provide context. The action is the steps that you took to address the problem, and the result is the outcome or the accomplishment from the action that you took. So, for example, if you were a volunteer gardener and you wanted to now apply to be a forestry technician, you could think about what I just said. What's the situations that I've come across? What actions did I take to solve those problems? And what are the results that came about? Well, and let's say somebody said, "Hey, Nick, thanks for applying to the forestry technician role. Tell me about a strength and a weakness of some of the experiences that you list on your resume." What would you say is a strength and a weakness? I would say, absolutely, great question. Here are two examples of a strength that I have experienced as a volunteer gardener. One time, I worked with a customer who was upset about his purchase at the gardening center. There was no manager on duty, and I took the initiative to help solve that problem with the customer. And as a result of me taking that initiative, not only was the customer pleased, but they left a phenomenal review for me. And as you see in my work portfolio, you can see what they said here. That is exactly how you want to answer almost every question that they'll ask, is the CAR format. Give me the number of examples, include the keywords that the interviewer asked, tell the story, give me the context behind how you solved the problem or the problem that was happening, and then give me the result of how you solved the problem. There's always keywords in anything the interviewer is going to ask you. Again, they're not trying to trick you. And again, when you're hearing those keywords, you can start to formulate your response. You don't have to rush to formulate your response. An interview is at your leisure. So take the time that you need to write down those keywords that you hear the interviewer asking. And then you can use the CAR format and respond to the question. So again, when you respond, here are two examples. Here are three examples. Here are four examples. The first is tell me the story. The second is tell me the story. And as a result of those challenges, I learned whatever from that situation. That's very clear. I tell folks when you have that type of format, it's very clear, it's very understandable to see the context of what's happening as well as quantify the results of what you did. We also want to touch a little bit on body language. So I typically work with clients on their body language as well, where I've had clients they mumble, you can hardly hear them. They don't smile much, they don't have any personality, they look sleepy, and they also don't use their hands. And what I'll tell you is orators, people that speak very well, do all of these things at a high level. They speak very clearly, they smile, they're personable, they have personality, they look energetic, they look alert, and they also use their hands. So a lot of times, if you've seen Obama speak, he always is using his hands to narrate the story. He's smiling, he's happy. These are people that are at a high level, have really great body language. So when you want to ace your interviews, remember great body language, keep good eye contact. And this is things that you can just practice on as you're doing either a virtual interview, in-person interview, or sometimes even a phone interview. I've called people and I can almost hear how they look, which is kind of funny, based upon their tonality, based upon their body language. Keep good eye contact. Of course, use good handshakes. Try not to fidget like you're nervous or anything. Keep good attire, well, good hygiene, fitting clothing, And it's always better to be overdressed than underdressed. Here's some great rules. Use your work portfolio to give evidence of your work. So many of you all, we worked on your resume, but we also need to work on your work portfolio to have evidence. What evidence do you have? Pictures, graphs, data, charts, YouTube, things that people can see, not just what you tell them. Provide examples from prior learned experiences in your answers. So don't just tell me, yeah, I worked there. Give me context of what happened when you worked there. Give me context when you did volunteer work. What was the value? What were the results that came from that work? And how can you fix my issue? So use examples that are similar to what you're applying to. Provide relevant and succinct answers that relate to the industry as well as the career path. So make sure that you reflect on what question they're asking. Number 4 is my biggest. Please stop begging, folks. We don't need to beg for jobs and there's no please pick me, please. We don't have to beg for jobs, folks. We are in a partnership mindset because you're a solutions provider. You provide a unique set of solutions that that company wants to hire you for. And you're confident because when you worked on those anxieties, you're confidently telling those individuals, this is what I'm done, this is what I'm doing, and I can solve your problem. But I also want to give you the choice to choose me. I don't want to just um, get so upset and despondent if I don't get chosen. I'm giving you the choice to choose me because I know I'm confident and I can solve that problem. So during our interview, sometimes you might get, or a possible interview, sometimes you might get what we call a phone screen. You'll use this called an elevator pitch. You'll also use an elevator pitch in your networking when you're meeting new people. So, what is an elevator pitch? An elevator pitch is a short, persuasive introduction that you use to introduce yourself or a project, and it's less than 30 seconds. So, for example, when I meet people at a networking event or in my phone screen, when a recruiter will call me and say, well, tell me a little bit about yourself. Or I've been at a networking event and they said, hey, I'm Mark. What's your name? I'm Nick. Oh, Nick, tell me what you do. So what I typically say, hi, I'm Nick Weeks. I'm a graduate of Bowie State University, which is a HBCU in Maryland. My most of my last 10 years, I've been focused on helping young adults find really amazing dream careers. Currently, I work as a program manager with a career focus. We have a really great scholarship that I help young people attain, where we can help them get into the green sector. And then I also do coaching. We have a virtual webinar program where folks can get involved in our coaching. So people are very clear about what value that I bring, who I am, and that was under 30 seconds. So when you're talking to folks, whether it's on a phone screen or if you're at a networking event, they want to know who you are. They want to know what you're all about, what values, what interests that you have. That's what you're talking about in your elevator pitch. You'll use this at your career fairs, networking events, job interviews. You'll also use it to pitch yourself for funding opportunities. I've had mentees reach out for scholarships, say, hey, Nick, I want you to write a reference for me, which is really an elevator pitch about that person. Folks have used it to request a raise or promotion. So elevator pitches are being used all the time. A foolproof way to create one is just have an introduction, where a problem that you saw or problems that you've solved in the past, how you've solved those problems, the actions that you've taken to solve them. I help students land their dream careers. Maybe students, I could talk about interviews, interviewing skills, resume help, LinkedIn help. Share the value proposition that you bring. How did you fix those problems? How did you bring value to the organization? And then just add a call to action. So, Mark, nice to meet you. Really great chat with you. I would love to get on your schedule next week Do you have time around Friday at 5? That's another thing. We must add a call to action. And typically, if you have that person's attention, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, make sure that you get on their calendar right away. Here's another example. I'm a recent graduate from York University with a degree in communications. I worked as a social media coordinator for a local conservation authority for the past 2 years. To increase their social media presence, I identified the content gap and utilized my proficiency in Photoshop to create graphics. Eventually, during my time there, their social media followers increased from 40 to 2,000. I'm looking for a full time social media coordinator position, and I believe my experience will be beneficial for your organization. So, again, very clear. There's no confusion about who they are, what value they bring, and how they solve problems. Now, I do want to touch on our visual brand. We talked about our dress style, we talked about interview anxiety, but I do want to touch a little bit on our LinkedIn profile. This is probably the most common issue that I see. Folks do have and do send me resumes, and then we help them. I help them clean it up, make sure it's optimized, but they don't do anything to their LinkedIn. And this is your visual brand. This is where people, recruiters, will come to see what you're doing. They'll come to see who you are. Or if you're talking to people, they'll come to see what you've done. And so most times folks don't even update their LinkedIn. They're not active on LinkedIn. So they're active on Instagram, they're active on X, they're active on Twitch, but they're not active where the jobs are happening. And again, that's why we have to talk about it. I love LinkedIns that are very clear. And these are a couple examples that we can show. Obviously, we see John Stephen Stansel is a social media consultant, a speaker, right in his bio. I can tell it right away. He also has a link to his website. Now, some of you all might not have a website, but you could link to your work portfolio where I can see your resume, where I can see graphs, data, charts, YouTube. So we definitely want to make sure people can click and go right to the results or the things that you're doing on so that they can have a visual. When we're virtually networking, we should be actively be using LinkedIn where we're setting up a consistent schedule. I didn't say you had to use LinkedIn every single day, but you should at least once a week update folks what you're doing, programs you're in, reaching out to set up your number two informational interviews. These are the times you're reaching out to people to set up a call. Maybe you want to know about the organization. Maybe you want to get their expertise or help and maybe a possible mentorship. But you should actively be doing that at least once a week if you are interested in going into the industry, moving up, creating a network. And again, number three, optimizing all the opportunities and seeking to provide value. We have a LinkedIn group. I want to say maybe 20 people have requested to join the group. In that group, there's over 330 people that are in our LinkedIn. Ask yourself the question, have you gone to the LinkedIn? Have you requested to be in the LinkedIn? And are you networking within the people that are in that group? Why would you go to our LinkedIn? Because these are people that have been in the program or are in the program. And that's how you, number one, a great way to start getting connected to people that are already doing the work that you want to do or that are seeking opportunities or sharing things on their LinkedIn so you can grow your network. And if you need help to do that, let me know. You want to be able to cheat the hiring process. A lot of times when you're reaching out to companies, you're going to run into two types of people that are going to look at your visual brand. That's the decision maker. That could be a recruiter, hiring manager, operations manager, a talent acquisition specialist. They have several names, but they're the decision maker. They're the person to bring you on to make that decision. And you never know. Well, not you never know, but Most times they'll label themselves on their profile, and sometimes you don't know who the decision maker or makers are. The other person you'll run into is the gatekeeper. These are people that have been at the organization for a few years, typically 3 or more, but they have hiring influence. And if you were on our last webinar call, I got an interview one time because I was talking to someone who had hiring influence. She was not an HR specialist or a talent acquisitions person. She was an employee. And she reached out to HR on my behalf because I set up an informational interview, as well as she went to my LinkedIn and saw, oh my goodness, this guy's a career coach and he's helped over 3,000 people land jobs. So our visual brand is very important for us to cheat the hiring process. We don't want to be on the job search longer than we have to. And right now, I think in Canada, the average is 4 months, if I'm not mistaken, that most folks are having issues finding a job, and then 5 months here in the States. So how do you set up your LinkedIn profile? You want to have a clear headshot. Now with AI, you can do one right on your phone. It can be grainy and it'll change your picture where you thought a photographer did it. So just a clear headshot, something professional with our business casual, or if you want to get super dressed up, wear, that's totally fine. You want to have an exciting headline where it shows your problem that you solve, things that you're working on, things that you're interested in, but people can understand what you're trying to do. I've gone to some of you all's profiles, and guess what? There's no bio, doesn't tell me anything, there's no pictures, it's not alive, it's not active. Okay, so we see Alicia Harper. She doesn't just say, well, I'm a school principal. She says, I'm a transformational school principal. I help school leaders achieve great results for students and staff. I have turnaround expertise as well as I'm a conference speaker. And in her banner, she has a picture of her helping, looks like a child. And she also has a couple of quotes. I think that's a phenomenal way to visually brand. You also have on your LinkedIn profile a section, your bio. Again, that will tell me more information. I love bios that tell a story. And you can look this up later for Shanali Burke. I think her bio's beautifully written. I'm not going to read it verbatim. But in her bio, she has numbers, metrics, and things I can count. So there's a line here. She says, well, I brung in revenue. I brung revenue back from $0 during the pandemic to almost 7 million last year. Well, that's a clear number. I can quantify that. Okay. We want numbers where you need numbers. So if you plant a certain number of trees, if you help a certain number of people, you can put that in your bio. You also want spacing. Make sure you space it where I can read it and flow with it. Because now, in the day and age we live in, recruiters sometimes might just look at your profile and say, hey, you know what? This person's qualified and I'd like to set them up for an interview. But we want to make sure that folks can read the information. So I do say have some spacing in there. Use relevant keywords. Relevant to what? The industry that you're trying to go into. So if you're trying to go into forestry, have you done anything with GIS software? Have you worked with a certain type of tree species? Use those keywords that are relevant to your industry or the particular positions that you're applying to. Number 4, the biggest one, show results. Don't just tell me about the work that you've done. How did it bring results to the organization or the company that you worked at? So again, what at a high level, what did you bring to that organization to help it grow, make more money, do better business? And again, you can use ChatGPT or Gemini to really help you to formulate those results. Number 5, contact information. Now on my profile, I have my number, I have my email because I want people to reach out to me right away. I don't want them to have to wait for me to check my messages. If they have an opportunity for me, I want them to reach out. So I always suggest having up-to-date contact information so people can get in touch with you. If you don't want to use your personal number, use a Google number. But you do need contact information so that if they have an opportunity, they can definitely reach out. And number six, tell a story. Tell your story. My story is going to be different from every other career coach story because it's my story. But a story tells me context. Don't just talk about, oh, I worked here. Tell me what interests you in the field, why you got into that work. That is just as important as some of the accomplishments that you've gotten from the work. Again, on your visual brand, you can use your work portfolio. I consistently say record, record, record. Record those job duties and achievements. What does it look like doing the work that you are doing or have done? It could be a video, it could be pictures, but I always say it is really great practice to start recording and documenting some of the work that you've done. It is easier to show people than it is to tell people. As they say, a picture is worth 1,000 words. This could be right on your LinkedIn, your visual brand, so that people can click and go right to your website or right to your YouTube. And then again, put things in writing. If you're at your job and your supervisor or your manager says, well, you did a great job. You've been there a few months and they say, oh, you're phenomenal. We love you. Put it in writing. Ask for a reference. Ask that they document the progress that you've done and also take control of documenting. If you don't have, or maybe if you're early career and you've been working at that company for a while and you don't get a progress report, create a progress report. How am I doing in the work? What are the job duties that I'm accomplishing? And have someone sign off on that. You can always present those things to your new employer. Folks love to see things in writing. I know I do, because it's easier to sell something when there's proof versus when there's no proof and it's just your resume. Enhance your skills on your visual brand. There's tons of free training and professional development. I always suggest folks start with, and this is really great for soft skills. So if you want more leadership, leadership education, project management, you can go to Class Central. Class Central is free, and they have thousands, not dozens, not hundreds, thousands of free courses. And you can take those courses and guess what? Put them on your resume. Okay. There's also groups, Forestry Professionals of British Columbia, Forestry Professionals of Ontario, hundreds of associations, groups that offer free certification programs. If you don't know about those, ask your mentor. If your mentor doesn't know, please schedule some time with me. But the name of the game is that your LinkedIn is your visual brand to show all the great work that you're doing and how you're taking the steps towards your goals. So I did want to leave a little room. We have about 4 minutes left. I wanted to leave a little room. I know I went over a lot of information. Again, some of the information you may have known, some of it might be new to you, but I did want to ask, does anybody have any questions? Okay, awesome. Well, we have some really great resources that come out in our bi-weekly memos. We have a Dress for Success tip sheet that'll be coming your way. We also have a video recording of our elevator pitch that'll also be in our bi-weekly memo. So just keep checking that, because again, we do include resources within that, as well as your PLT platform. When you log in, there's some really great resources that you can use. What's next, Nick? Well, we're going to have a lot of fun. We have some of our mentors that will be talking on November 6th. That's actually really fun. They get to talk about what they've done, as well as how they got into what they've done. And they're great people to add to your network. That'll be on November 6th at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 1 p.m. Pacific Time. So please make sure that you register for that. I would always say work on your interviewing skills. That's your homework. Reach out to your network. Start building your network, number one, and reaching out to people that are doing the work that you want to do. This is a long journey, but this is a lot. This is a fun journey when you start to reach out, start connecting and practicing on your elevator pitch, telling people about some of the interests you have. Many people will make time for you to help push you forward. Start applying for some new jobs and new roles. Again, I've opened up my Fridays. If you need help, assistance, I want to say at least 10 to 15 folks have met with me or are meeting with me, and I'm very excited to help you move forward. I'm here if you need help with your resume, your visual brand, if you are having interview anxiety. These are really great coaching calls. Again, we want to fully prepare you for all the amazing opportunities out there. Schedule time with me on Fridays. Every Friday. It was every or twice a month, but now we've done every week. And Fridays, I have open office hours. Would love to chat with you if you have any questions. And then stay tuned for our next memo. And also mark your calendar, November 20th. This is a great opportunity for those in Ontario. They will have a virtual career fair. It's going to be really fun. We have, I want to estimate over 20 employers that will be there ready to hire, ready to bring people on. And again, if you've been practicing, we'll know. We'll know if you've taken the information and started to use it. And these are folks that are ready to hire. They're ready to bring people on. And the question is, are you ready? Did you take notes? Did you update your LinkedIn? Did you enhance your resume? Did you put in the work? Because they'll be there on November 20th from 1 to 3:30. Again, that's the goal, that you get your opportunity, and we're providing that opportunity. So I'm excited about that. And you have the QR code if you want to take a picture of it and register now. And what we didn't have is our slide for our youth delegate scholarship. That scholarship is open right now as we speak. And again, our youth delegate scholarship, for those that don't know, we are going to be flying out to Montreal next year. Montreal is in May 5th through the 7th, I want to say. But this will be a really phenomenal opportunity for those that are selected. It is competitive, a competitive scholarship. We don't choose everybody. But again, if you need that link, you want to go online. You can also ask me to send out the link. But again, that scholarship is going to be very phenomenal for those that get to go to network and to hopefully get opportunities in the market. We want to thank you here at SFI, and thank you for tuning in, spending some time with us. I hope that you took something away today, whether it's for your branding, your dress style. We appreciate your time. I'm always grateful to do these. Again, schedule time with me, and we'll see you soon. You all have a great Thursday. Take care.